I'll give you one after the fight.
Perfect.
All right, man. Welcome back to Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, last time was such a weird situation, right? This time you got a lot more certainty about what's happening, and everything. So give an idea. I mean, how different does it feel this time around versus last time?
It feels a lot of the same because I, at this point, last time on Fight Island, I was still mentally preparing like I was fighting. We all knew there was a slim chance that I was actually going to step into the cage on October 24th. But you have to put your best foot forward. You have to prepare as if you're going to fight. It wasn't until noon on Saturday that I actually took the pressure off. And they finally said, okay, hey, you're going to show up to the arena. You're going to do some interviews. Wear this, wear that, whatever. And I was like, okay, so I'm not fighting. So it feels similar right now. And I really am glad I took that trip in October because now I know a lot of the UFC staff. Now we've worked together. Now I'm having a working relationship with the people I'm going to be rubbing elbows with for the next 5 years, the rest of my career. So it was a good little dry run, great trip, and I'm excited to get out there on Saturday and compete.
I was going to ask, because it was like a dry run. I was like, a dress rehearsal, right? So I think part of us thought, well, maybe that'll be, not the greatest situation, but beneficial to him when he does make his debut, right? Because do you think it actually paid real dividends, that maybe you don't have quite the nerves, or maybe you feel a little bit more settled?
Yeah, I do actually, because I, to be honest, coming to my first fight week, I was a little bit more nervous coming into it. And it wasn't even just, it wasn't the fact that, oh, maybe I'll fight and I'm visualizing and I'm mentally preparing for the fight. It was like, okay, well, I'm getting these emails from which the UFC is on their stuff. This is a well-oiled machine. I'm getting emails nonstop on the 1,000 different things that need to happen for each of us fighters to get to Fight Island, to get to the fight, all the different protocols and stuff. And now I can put names or faces with the names. And that first trip, I already got all that stuff out of the way. So now it's, hey, familiar face. Hey, how are you? Good to see you again. It was just a couple months ago I was here. So it's almost like getting rid of that monkey off your back, that it's a brand new promotion, brand new people, brand new colleagues, co-workers. And then now, this time now it's just focus on training, making the weight, and obviously doing my obligations, and then fighting Dan Hooker on Saturday night.
We know how committed you are and everything you do. The plane delay, does that throw you off physically, mentally? I mean, that's a huge change of schedule, right? It's not just flying, a couple hours. It's a big deal, right? So physically, mentally, has this been challenging to kind of adjust on the fly?
Oh, it probably is, but ignorance is bliss, man. I'm the kind of guy where I just you can't do anything about it. What you're going to complain? It's not going to get that plane there any faster, So we made an extra day out of it. Obviously being in quarantine stinks. You're stuck in the hotel in Vegas, but we got our workouts in. I'm surrounded by people that love me, people that I love being around. My coach Henry, friend and training partner Marquez, manager Randall Alleman is here now, so I'm rooming with him. And then we got here a day and a half late, and the wait was the scary thing, because a 16-hour flight, and you wake up early, and then all of a sudden maybe you don't go to the bathroom for it's a day and a half, and you're like, okay, I'm 200 pounds right now. I wasn't really 200 pounds, but I felt like it, So, and then once you kind of go through the cycle of getting, everything flushing itself out, I got back on a normal weight where I need to be, and my manager and I, Randall, were working out in the room, and I was punching him to the body, and Henry let us borrow his body protector. So we got our workouts in the room, and we're where we need to be, and now we're on schedule.
Very nice. This was a big fight for numerous reasons regardless, right? But when Khabib comes out and says, hey man, impress me and we might do something, does that add anything? I mean, is that going to be in your head at all between now and then, or maybe when you step in, of course you want to win, but man, I got to do something a little extra so I can get that Khabib fight?
No, and I'll tell you why. I mean, a lot of times when you're focusing on something, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that ends up not happening. You focus so much, I got to be spectacular. I got to get a knockout. I got to get a submission. Oh, wait, Khabib's a wrestler, so maybe he wants a wrestling challenge. Let me go out and wrestle Dan Hooker so he thinks I'm a good enough wrestler for him to challenge. I don't want to think about that. I want my performance to speak for itself. I want to go out there and beat Dan Hooker in whatever way possible. And truthfully, I know I can trust myself, because I always go for spectacular. It didn't matter. I mean, you followed my career for a long time. I had a lot to lose against a lot of guys where I was supposed to beat guys in the first round. There's a lot more pressure when you're going out and fighting a guy who you're supposed to finish in the first round, and doing anything less than finishing him in the first round is a letdown to a lot of people. Whereas now I just got to go and fight the number 6 guy on the entire planet in my UFC debut on the co-main event of a huge pay-per-view. There's not a lot of pressure in that because I've already cemented a great career. I've already enjoyed a great career, and I want the fight to be able to take care of itself. And spectacular is what I go for every single time.
I was gonna say, the last thing for me, what would be ideal for you? I mean, you obviously have the ability to finish fights, right? But we've also seen Dan in some incredible wars.
Yeah.
What would be better for you, to go out there and do something, first round finish, knock this guy out and blow the world away, or for them to see you get tested and pushed and grinded and survive that?
Man, both sounds great. Obviously for my face's sake and my body's sake, of course, I'd love to just knock him out in the first round like I have a lot of times in the past. But there's something to be said about stepping into that octagon, being in a war, and the fans. There's been some criticism of me coming into the UFC, of course, that I'm not at that level. So we'll see. But I think I always want the finish. The finish, man. There's nothing better than finishing a guy in the first round, first exchange, first knockout. I mean, it would be ideal for me. That would be the best case scenario. But I also welcome a war. I also think I'm battle tested. I'm battle hardened. I think Dan Hooker is as well. I think this fight's got fight of the night written all over it. So we'll see. We'll see how the cards play out.
Dan admits that he's probably not the first name that you would have chosen for a UFC debut. So, hey, is that true? And how excited are you to actually face him?
That's hard because it's hard to answer that question without sounding disrespectful, as if I didn't want to fight him. But I mean, essentially, when I signed with the organization, we wanted, and the UFC wanted, a top 5 guy right away. So Dan Hooker's name was always in the mix, but Tony Ferguson was the first name that came out, and I was tied to him right away because we were supposed to fight in October. He said no, and then after that, then we tried to get him on the January card, and so there was kind of this Tony Ferguson road we were going down. That wasn't because we didn't want to fight Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker wasn't good enough. It just seemed like Tony Ferguson needed a date. He needed an opponent, whatnot. So, and then it was obviously the rumors about Justin Gaethje, and we were trying to get a Justin Gaethje fight done. Dan Hooker name was still in the mix. So, I would never want that to come off as disrespectful, like he's not worthy of me fighting him. Dan Hooker is possibly one of the hungriest guys, probably the hungriest guy in this division. He has proven himself. That he's kind of got a lot to prove. I think Conor's already had this success. Poirier's already had this success. Gaethje has had this success. I feel like Dan Hooker has that chip on his shoulder that he has something to prove. I think he has a lot more to prove than I do, to be honest. I think to the fans and to the media, everybody wants to see where I stack up, so they want to see. They say I have something to prove, but to me, I don't fight like I have something to prove. I fight like this is the calling on my life. I want to go out there and do amazing things.
Does that make Dan probably the more dangerous opponent that you could have coming off of a war like that, a loss? He wants to erase that?
1,000%. I think you got a guy in Dan Hooker who is he sets a high bar. He sets a great pace. He takes damage and is willing to give it out. But then he's also technical. He can slice you up surgically with his technique. He can also stand right in front of you, get into a war, push you up against the cage, and then be in a knockdown, drag-out dogfight. That's a scary but also exciting scenario to be in, an exciting and scary opponent. So, and also, like you said, coming off of a loss. This is the what have you done for me lately business, and you're only as good as your last fight. So he's coming off of an L. I'm coming off of a nice first round finish, so I'm riding high. I'm feeling like my hands are unstoppable, like I can go out there and knock out anybody. So we'll see how it plays out. Either way, I'm ready for all scenarios to play themselves out on Saturday night.
And then you obviously coming from a wrestling background, he's predominantly a striker. So as a wrestler, what do you make of his defensive wrestling?
He's been taken down a few times, but you also see him, I think, defend the takedown a lot more than he gets taken down. Granted, I would like to think, in the most humble way possible, that my wrestling is a lot better than a lot of the guys that he has faced. I mean, there's a difference between an MMA fighter who's got decent wrestling for MMA compared to a purebred Division I All-American wrestling pedigree. With that being said, he poses a lot of problems with his length, his reach, his ability to evade, and his ability to keep throwing pot shots and stick you as he's moving. I don't know. I'm excited. It's a puzzle that is not going to be easily solved, which gets me more excited than I've ever been in my entire career. So Saturday night, grab your popcorn because co-main event's going to steal the show.
I don't expect you to take this opportunity to rag on him, but looking at how things have played out, do you think it was a mistake for Tony Ferguson to push so hard for that December date and not just wait until today, this week?
I'm the kind of guy, it's all water under the bridge. I try not to think too much about the past, but I do think it was an interesting decision. But then again, Tony Ferguson's an interesting individual. I mean, we can all agree with that. We had the opportunity to fight October 24th. He says no. I get it. Then for some reason he didn't want to be on this card. I don't get it. And then it was 3 weeks of silence, 4 weeks of silence, and I'm home spending time serving my family because I hadn't seen them in 8 months. I had been in training camp for 8 months because of the pandemic. And he calls me out on 3-4 weeks notice, essentially, that he wanted to fight in December. And then he takes a somewhat short notice fight against Charles Oliveira, which turns out to be a horrible idea. So, I think mismanaged opportunity, mismanaged scenario on his part, but can't tame Tony Ferguson.
When you look at the main event, I'm sure you've been asked this 100 times, but how exactly do you see it playing out? Do you see Conor's year off as a disadvantage to him, or do you think the war that Dustin had with Dan is actually a disadvantage to him? How do you see the main event playing out? Both
are interesting scenarios. You can only have so many of those wars that Dustin has been in, But I think Conor, just keeps getting better. I mean, yeah, he had a year off, but he also finished Cowboy Cerrone in 40 seconds, so he's only spent 40 seconds in the octagon in the last maybe 2 years, But I think Conor conducts himself for the most part like a champion when it comes to buckling down and training. Not to mention the fact that you see the pictures, you see the training videos, you see the hype, you hear the interviews. He's on a different wavelength of seeing this opportunity. I think he sees, as Khabib is talking about retiring, knowing that maybe there's that one fight left with Khabib, but then also after that, it leaves the door open for him to win the title, and he wants to be champion. So I think Conor's motivated. I think a year off doesn't do anything bad for him. I think Dustin probably took the requisite time off that he needed to after the Dan Hooker fight. So we will see. I'm excited. Hopefully I go out there, finish Dan Hooker, and can shower up real quick, do my media obligations, and run out there to the front row and see who could quite possibly be my next opponent in the UFC.
I don't think anyone's going to accuse you of being intimidated or anything like that, but is there something, coming from the outside in, is there an interesting factor that you might bump into McGregor in the lobby and just sort of see how well does he know me? What's he going to say to me? Is there any part of that kind of you're just curious to see what the dynamic he's going to take with you is? Because sometimes he can be very respectful, other times he can choose a different path. Is any part of you curious?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of a wild card. But I will say these days Conor seems a little bit more reserved, a little bit more respectful. I think he knows of me. He knows how I conduct myself, how I operate. I'm not going to be the guy who's going to get into a physical or a verbal altercation in the hotel lobby anyway. Love to bump into him, love to size him up, love to see what he looks like in real life. I saw him show up to the hotel with no shirt on and his son in his hands and some hot pants or whatever he was wearing, some big baggy pants. So Conor's a character, man. So he's a wild card. It's interesting. I'd love to run into him. I'll see him on Thursday at the press conference. I'll be sitting right next to him, and we'll size each other up there, and we'll see what happens.
I asked this to Dan earlier as well. DC and Ariel were talking about if maybe his skills are kind of understated because of all the fame and everything that comes around him and how much he talks and all of that good stuff. Just purely on a skill and academic level as a fighter, how do you look at Conor? Do you think he gets the credit he deserves, I guess?
For the record, I will say I think he is underappreciated for how good he is. Just because there is it all started with the loudmouth, trash talking, brash Irishman that nobody knew who the heck this guy was. He comes in and he starts talking way out of his league. And so we all thought, oh, he's just talk. And then he wins and wins and wins and wins and becomes double champ, and the rest is history. But even to this day, now it's less of the trash talk and less of the voice of Conor McGregor, and it's more of his accolades. The Floyd Mayweather fight that was seen by so many people, the hundreds of millions of dollars that he has in his bank, the whiskey dynasty that he's building. He has this thing about him that it makes so much sense for him to have so much stuff going on outside the cage that there's no way that he could perform at a championship level, yet I think he does. I always said from the very beginning that Conor's not as good as he thinks he is, but he's better than we all thought he was. And I say that because I think that's a testament to Conor's self-belief. I think he thinks he is a little bit better than he actually is, and that's just a testament to his self-belief. But he's definitely better than all of us thought he was. The media, the fans, the fighters, all of us thought he wasn't as good, and eventually he was going to be exposed. Eventually he was going to lose, and of course he did. He has his bumps. He's picked himself up and dusted himself off and come back like a champion, and here he is again, headlining another pay-per-view once again, of course, and I'm excited to be on that co-main event.
If Khabib was to walk or was to stay, is there one that excites you more out of the two, Khabib or Conor?
Man, I mean, how do you not ask for the Conor fight? I mean, it's the biggest notoriety, it's the biggest eyeballs, the most amount of eyeballs, probably the best payday, and also I think I match up well against Conor. I think I pose a couple threats that win that fight, and I'd love to compete against him. I'd love to feel that pressure. I'd love to feel that experience, but everybody does. At this point, it's a delicacy. At this point, it's you got to earn it. It's a rite of passage. It's more of a it's something that it isn't just handed out. So I got to go out there and do my job against Dan Hooker if I even need to think about fighting Conor McGregor.
We've got to ask as well, like 10 years Bellator, and obviously 3-time champ, all the great stuff that you've done. Was it always kind of the plan or the dream? I don't want semantics on the word.
Yeah.
But to get to UFC, was that always the goal? Why was that the right time to make a jump?
I'll be honest. I think there was definitely times, definitely seasons where I thought it just wasn't going to happen because of maybe the direction that the promotion was going, maybe the entrance of Conor McGregor and this facade that everybody put on that they needed to trash talk to sell pay-per-views and do all this stuff that just felt forced, and guys weren't really good at it. There's only one Conor, and there's only a couple other guys who can actually do it well. And I thought that was the direction that the UFC was going, and it's kind of cycled back to me getting a lot more notoriety and respect for me being respectful and being eloquent with my words, as well as respectful to my fellow competitors and giving nods and giving props to my fellow competitors. I didn't think that was going to be well received, and I was wrong. It has been, and it's worked out really well so far. But I'll remember my conversation with Dana right before I signed. We were on the phone, and he was on the tarmac getting ready to fly somewhere, and we were having this conversation, and I told him, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, every single time that my contract was up, I wouldn't have been the champion that you need me to be, the superstar that you need me to be, that this organization deserves. I wasn't there where I needed to be. Now I am at the right time. This is the right moment, and this is definitely the right stage. It's a blank page right now to write that first chapter in the masterpiece that we're about to start here in the UFC, and I can't wait to go out there and compete.
I kind of hate to ask this with respect to Ben Askren, but do you see any kind of Ben Askren syndrome kind of coming in, a ranked guy straight away, the pressure that comes with that, I guess?
No, because I asked for a ranked guy right away. Truthfully, I asked for guys, ranked ahead of Dan Hooker. I wanted Gaethje. I mean, shoot, I would have asked for Khabib if I thought I could get that fight. I would ask for number one right away. But I also felt I didn't want to come in, and I didn't come in with this sense of entitlement like I deserve this number, that number, or that number. It was the UFC's plan with me to fight a top 5 guy right away, and we'd settle on Dan Hooker. And listen, I'm well aware of Ben's fights in the UFC, his stint in the UFC. I'm well aware that he seemed to be more bark than he was bite in his UFC career, I guess, going 1 and 2. But Ben Askren, I can guarantee right now that Ben Askren lays his head on his pillow at night and sleeps like a baby, knowing that he came to the UFC, he put his best foot forward, he came up short a couple times. It remains to be seen what the Michael Chandler story will be. I believe it's going to be a lot different than Ben's. That doesn't make me any better or any worse than him. He's a dear friend of mine, like a big brother to me. So we will see how the story is told. And there's a lot of people comparing me to Ben Askren, which there's the Mizzou connection, there's the friendship that we have, but we shall see.
Do you think that Khabib is going to fight again? And if he doesn't, who do you think the next lightweight champion of the UFC is going to be?
I think he does, and I think I am, and I think I beat Khabib.
Michael, you've been around the block for a long time, but new fans of the sport don't necessarily know you, and as such, some have even questioned your legitimacy in facing a number 6 ranked guy straight off the bat. I mean, you must be relishing the prospect of silencing them once and for all, and proving what many people have thought for a long time, that you were the best 155-pounder outside of the UFC.
Yeah, it's definitely, I completely get it. The UFC is the longest standing organization. It is the highest level. If you're not ranked in the UFC, you're not ranked in a lot of people's eyes. If you don't fight in the UFC, you're not a professional mixed martial artist in a lot of people's eyes. I hear those things. I hear those people saying those things, and that's going to happen no matter what. People are always going to talk. When I'm world champion and I'm having phenomenal performances, I'm still going to hear negativity. But for me, it's always been about proving my supporters and my fans and my followers and my closest of inner circle, proving all of them right, not proving the doubters wrong. Proving all of them right is just as a byproduct. By default, I'll prove everybody else wrong, and then eventually they'll jump on the bandwagon. Eventually they will open their mind and open their heart to, okay, maybe Michael Chandler is the real deal. Then again, maybe they won't. Maybe I'll fall flat on my face on Saturday night and they'll all laugh at me and they were proven right. So we'll see.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.